This is a video on how to make objects that transform from one shape to another. You see I got like some kind of funny structure there. I hit a button. What does it do? Oh, it turns into a robot. All right, and then it just goes right back. I'm going to show you how to do that with just about any series of shapes that you want to make. This one is a much simpler one. Same thing. See, this one transforms into a chair, so it can be like in the background part of the scenery, whatever. You hit a button and then it comes out and operates as a chair or whatever object you want to use. So let's get right into the script. I'm going to show you the script at first. I know that some of our advanced people don't want to sit around and go through the whole tutorial. They just want to see what the script is and be able to use it. So I'm going to go over the script. Then the middle of the video, I'm going to go over how this script works, the nuances of it, and then finally, we're going to actually do this from scratch. So if you've never done this before, you will still be able to create something like one of these just by watching this video. Honestly, it'll probably take you a few tries to watch it, but by the end of this video, we're going to make one of these from scratch. So let's look at the script for the robot that transfers, okay? The first thing we'll do is we'll look at our variables. So that robot consists of 5 different pieces: a head, a face, a torso, arms, and a disc. So I made a variable for each object. So 5 objects, 5 variable objects. Then in my script, I have them move to the position of something else. And I have them move to the position of markers. They're just invisible cubes that are non-collidable, but I call them marker. I can't remember where I got the name marker from. Maybe it's something to do with like cinema or something, and when people stand on a marker. Anyhow. Then I have these variables are just for the sound effects. We're not going to really go off on the sound effects. So right now, the significant ones are the 5 objects for the objects, the markers for all those 5 objects of where they're going to travel to. Then a Boolean, because for this switch, I have it running on a button. There's many different ways you can make things, trigger things with an event. Here I'm using a button, and I just want to use the same button for on and off. So to do that, I have to toggle it with a Boolean. And again, if you watch till the end of this video, I will explain that into the most boring details. I promise. I will do you that favor. Now, the next series of 5 variables, and if you notice, it keeps me in sets of 5 because they link up to the piece of the original object, okay? So again, head, face, torso, arms, disc. Head, face, torso, arms, disc. And these are vector variables, which are for a position in the world. Head, face, torso, arms, disc. And then 5 rotations. And org head, is like original head rotation. Org head rot, org face rot. Those are just kind of like labels to help me understand what these things are. So org means original, okay? So head, face, torso, arms, disc. So basically what I'm saying is when you build any of these transforming objects, you are going to have to make 4 variables for every object. You're going to have to make a variable for the object itself, for the marker it travels to, an original vector and an original rotation for each one. So we have 5 objects, therefore we got 20 variables for that, and then our Boolean variable. Again, off sound, don't worry about those. Don't worry about button or click sound. Those are because I want to make my buttons seem a little more realistic, you see, or you hear. I have sound effects that go along with it. We're not going to go over the sound effects. You got to hire your boy for those, you know what I'm saying? But honest to God, if you come in here, I will just tell you how to do it. I'll show you guys how to do any of this stuff. But if you want to build, you know what I mean? You better cough up them cash. And I do take Robux. Just kidding. All right. So how does this work? As you see, you know what? We'll go to the simpler one to really get into this. But these objects are going to move to the position of these markers. Okay, so I labeled this marker. So this is probably the head marker. Yeah. So the head is going to move to this marker. and it's going to rotate to the rotation of this marker. And I'm going to explain all that after we finish looking at this script. So we looked at our variables, right? We have 4 for every object plus 1 Boolean. All right. So once the world is started, we're going to set these original positions, and I'll come back to this. I'm going to explain why and all that, but let's just go over the script for people who already know this stuff. So we're going to set the original positions to the positions of all those pieces from where they start. So that way, when we push the button to send them back to their original position, it knows where to go. Same thing with original rotation. We're going to ignore scale right now because scale has to do with changing size, and I'm not teaching that right now. Now, that's just when the world is started. Now, when trigger is entered by player, or in other words, when a player touches this green trigger that is invisible when you're here, but it doesn't mean it's not there. Let's see, it's that invisible green trigger when you're in edit mode. So, when the trigger is entered, we're going to check the Boolean is on. That's the name of the Boolean. Like, is it on, or sometimes I call it assembled. Is it assembled? Is it positive? Is it doing the thing it's supposed to do? But it's not, because it's unassembled. It's still like packaged. So is on is going to be false because when we created it, we set the default to false. So when the world is started, this variable is on. Oh man, I can see how that could be a confusing name. But this Boolean is set to false on default because I have it set here. So you can just change it. All right, but we're going to have it set to false. So the first time someone enters that trigger or touches that button, basically, it's the exact same thing, is on is going to be false. So if something's false, it'll do everything under that if. And if it's not false, then it'll do whatever is under else. But it is going to be false the first time you push it. So what's going to happen? When trigger is entered by player, we're going to move the head. And we're going to move it to the position of the head marker, and we're going to rotate the head to the rotation of the head marker. Okay? And we're going to do that for all pieces. And we're going to do it over time, so it kind of gives it a nice effect. You see I have the rotation take about a second longer than the positioning. So it gets to its position, and then it still has to like finish rotating. I feel like that also gives it kind of like a nice aesthetic. See? So things are in a position, and then they're still kind of rotate. You know, if everything syncs up exactly, I don't know, it looks a little too, a word that means boring. I don't know. All right. Then after it moves all those, of course, it sets the Boolean to true. So next time someone hits the button, Boolean is going to be true. So it won't do this. It won't go to the false area. It'll go to this side, else. And it'll do all these things. Again, the scaling that we're not going to go over. And now it's going to move the head and rotate the head again, but back to its original position. Remember, we set that in the beginning. I'm sorry, I scrolled really fast down to the top. I hope I'm not confusing people. See, at the beginning, we set the original positions. The green ones are vectors, and we set the original rotations. The red ones are rotations. And we set them to the positions and the rotations of the original objects. And again, I will go over this in great detail. So it moves all those to the original position, and then it sets the Boolean back to false. So next time someone enters the trigger, it's going to check, is the Boolean false? And if it is, then yes, it will do all these things. And then switch to true. And that's it. That's the script. That is not the most difficult part of this, the script. The most difficult part is getting these squares set. See, because it's going to go to where these cubes are, because these are the markers. These objects are going to move to the position of the marker, as in the script. But look. So, it's going to go to the position of those markers. See, and where those markers were, see, they're still in there. If I go in there, see, those are still those markers. Those markers are still right there. And that's how the face part and the head part and the torso, everything knew where to go. Now, if I move one of those, if I move one of these blocks, let's move the face block. Move it down here. So now that's where it's going to go. That's where the face part is going to go. So that's it. All you got to do is arrange these blocks wherever you want. Put it over here, and that's where it's going to go after it goes back to its original position. It also goes to the rotation of the object. So see, let's do that. So this is the object that the face was going to, the face marker. It has, let's look under its attributes, and that's its position. So when we say go to the position of an object, it's not going to the object. All it's doing is it's pulling these 3 numbers, because a position is just 3 numbers. It doesn't know about anything else. If you send it anything but 3 numbers, then it will not work. It'll be like, where are we going? We only go to position numbers. So you see here in the beginning, when we set the original positions, we didn't say set position, set, this vector to the head. We sent it to position of head. See, look, if we were to have it go to or set it to the head, it's a incorrect typeset because it expected a vector, which is 3 digits. So let me erase that. You have to do position of, and we'll go over where all that is. A lot of you already know what that is. All right. So again, but it also goes to the rotation. So see how we move the face over there, it goes there, and it rotated to that face. Okay. Now you saw, it kind of like looked like a U. If we turn it upside down, that's how it's going to rotate to. So if I turn that block sideways, it's going to have that face shape sideways. All right, and this is what I meant about explaining the nuances. I basically explained the script. Now I'm going to explain position of and rotation of. Okay, and same thing with rotation. It's going to move that face piece to the rotation of this object, and we can tell you exactly what the rotation is. 0, 60, 90. Okay, so when we move that position, it is going to adopt the identical rotation with this, and again, it's just going to say 3 numbers. All right, so let's build this let's build this, and we'll show how to make it. Oh, you know what? Before we start building the script, let me show you how to position these cubes. So you think like, it'll be simpler if I do it on the chair because it only has 2 pieces. So the chair, those 2 pieces are going to move and rotate, those 2 objects, to these markers. And it's ranged in a way that it would look like a chair. You'll notice it also changes color, but we're not going to go over the color. Okay, so now it made that. Now it knew to do that because it went to the position of these objects. So you have to say, how does it, it's got that 3-digit number, these objects of the position. What do those, where in here is that 3 numbers? Like, how specific is it? Well, I'll tell you. We'll go into snap mode by clicking on the little magnet. And now when we touch this object, it's going to have all the little spheres in it for all its points. Okay? Even if an object is not itself a sphere, cube, it will have a cube-like or rectangular prism yellow frame around it when you touch it. So look, these objects too, anyhow, let's see. This is not this one here is not exactly a cube. It's a, rectangle, and it has like this big indent in there, but yet it still has a rectangular frame around it with these spheres, all in the relatively same positions. Okay. All right. So when we're in magnet mode and we touch this, it's that center dot. That dot is at the exact point. That's how specific it is. Whatever the 3 numbers are for position, it is where that exact dot is in the world relative to the center of the world. And these 3 numbers are the X, the Y, and the Z. Okay, so there's an X which goes side to side, one side to side, like, you know what I'm talking about. Let's pull out an object. This world, I just happen to know where the directions in this world are. I know that that is the Z positive. So look at this object. That little person is the center of this world. So this is this distance away. It is negative 9.6 meters away from that. Okay. It is 0.8 meters above it because the y-axis, see this green one is the y. That one is vertical. That one has to go up and down the y. You know, the x is this way, how far away it is this way. And then the z is how far it is this way from the center. So that is closer to the center, moving this direction. So therefore, since in the z direction, moving this way goes closer, moving that way must also lower the z position. So 12.2 meters away from the center. If I move it a little bit to the right, now it's 8.3 meters. Let's watch as I do it. See? And it's getting closer to the center. And when we pass the center, it's going to go into the negative numbers. And that's where it is. It's in the negative z space. Okay? So in the x-axis, see the x-axis goes this way. So again, we know that that's the center. And our x vector is negative 8 meters. That's just such. Negative 8 meters. So if I push it closer to that, that's closer to 0. Therefore, technically the number should go up, which it brings it closer to 0. So let's get it to like -5 or, let's see. I'm guessing I'm right about there. It's probably -5. Close. Okay. And again, once I pass that center piece, it's going to start going into the positive. So that's how X, Y, and Z work. Okay, and let me just show you why. Obviously, Y is usually a low number because on the ground, you're only a meter or two up. But you see, if we raise it up high, then the Y goes higher. It's almost 10 meters high up here. Okay, so these objects also have a vector. So these objects are going to move to the position of this object. So basically, this object's position, -6.78 on X, 0.66 on the Y, 11.34 on the Z, is going to change. And it is going to match identical to the position it's moving to. Okay? So it is going to change its position to negative, and it's going to do it temporarily only while the script is running, but it's going to change it. So that being said, if I set the positions of the object, the chair, because that's what's moving, the position, if I change the position to match identical the marker it's moving to, then it will be in the exact same space. Now, it's only going to affect the position, not the rotation. So look what happens if I match it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move that chair. I got that drift. I already talked to Best Buy. I'm telling you, this is one of the only things I actually buy that like extended warranty thing for, because these controllers are guaranteed to start drifting. Okay. So the marker is -7.75 meters away from center on the x-axis. It is 1.2 meters away from center on the y-axis, and 12.65. Now, when we go look at it, we're going to see that piece is moved to this marker. It has the same position as that marker. So when I go into center, see the marker is right at the center of where this guy is. Now, but it doesn't have the correct rotation. Remember, the rotation has to, Oh, you know what? I was doing the wrong object. But anyway, you get the point. See, the rotation, it has it rotated like this. It's kind of like off a little. Like it's kind of diagonal to this object in a way. So if I match the rotation, then this thing will adopt that guy's rotation. So his rotation is 0, 315, 180. So 0, which is almost 360, same. 315 and 180. Now it's going to have the same rotation as this object. So now let's go over how to get it, like arrange it, because it's not that necessarily easy to arrange. Because let's say, I just had these squares to begin with, and I want, it's like, okay, I want the back piece to be about here, and I want the, thing to be here. So let's see, maybe if I do it right there, maybe that'll work. Okay, it's going to move to those positions. And then I would come in here and I would try it. Let's see. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's see, let's look at it. Oh, it's a little too low. Okay, so I'll raise it up. Next time, those are the positions and rotations I want it to go to. Okay, start over. And it should go to the new position. Okay, a little too high, whatever. So to get it exactly the way you want it, the best thing to do is this. Okay? I'm going to show you. The best thing to do is just straight up make the object that you want to make. So we want to make a chair. Let's just do it right here by hand. Let's just make the chair where we want it. Okay? We want the chair. Let's say we want it right over here on this purple. Okay? And we want the chair to look like this. About that high. And then we look at it. Okay, that's how we want the chair, right? You look in there. Yeah, I mean, now there's ways to do it so your legs don't go through, but we're going to keep this simple. You see? So it's at the right height at least. Okay? So now, I want these markers to match where these positions are. So that way, whenever it moves to these markers will be here. But what I'm going to do after that is then I'm going to take these objects and move them back to somewhere where they're like, so it kind of looks like it's like part of the furniture or something. You don't know what this is. And so, to me, that's kind of cool. Oh, let me reset the world so this actually works. So it's, and then afterwards we would set it like that. And it still makes our chair the way we want it. Okay. But again, so we had the chair arranged where we want it, and we need to move these markers there. So we're just going to copy the rotation and position of these two objects. Okay? So we want this to be in a place where when this moves, it's in the right place. So this has to copy this. The marker has to copy the original object. Now that it's, we've assembled it like this. And we are going to change it afterwards. We are going to change where this position is. This object begins. All right. So let's see. The back marker. Its position is -7 points. Okay. So I'm just going to copy whatever is in the object. -7.87. 1.28. I know I don't need to erase everything, but it's like sometimes I'm not working with a mouse here. This clicky stuff isn't, always perfect. Okay, so that's its position. So now that marker's moved from there. It's no longer there. It's now here where I want it to be. Let's also get the rotation that I want. Okay. Oh, you know what? We were messing with the rotation earlier, so it's still pretty close. So -0, which is the same as 0, 315. And this is also 315. This is 0. Rotation is 0 on its z-axis, and this is rotation 180, so we just flip it, and it's 0. And so now this block is exactly where it needs to be. Okay. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with this marker. This is the marker for the bottom, and this is the bottom piece. So think about it. Before I start doing it, what am I going to do? This is the object that we want to move. This is the marker. This needs to be in a place. This marker needs to be in a place so that way when this object moves and rotates to it, it's going to the correct place, which is not right here. We want it, it's going to be somewhere here. So whatever this object is, it has its center. See, this object has its center there. And we want this center to go there. And we want this rotation to be exactly like this guy's rotation. They're actually not that far apart, so, you know, the numbers will be close. So let's look at the attributes. Well, we're already in attributes. The position. Let's copy the position. So the object is negative 7.97. You know, and there's nothing to calculate. Just copy the number. Okay. The Y position is 1.03. And the Z position is 12.87 meters away from the center on the Z axis. Oh, look, I did all that extra typing in the wrong place. I meant to type there. So 12.87. And now it's in the right position. Let's get it to the right rotation. 270, 315, 0. 270, 315, 0. I mean, we will change it just to be exact matching. It was only 0.02 meters off, but whatever. Like, I'm sure nobody would have noticed. But, you know, this is a tutorial, so that's all I need in the comments, right? You did something wrong! All right. So, let's start it over. And now, those are in the right place. But here's the thing. Now when I push the button, its original position is where the markers are. So it's moving to the markers. Here, it moved to the markers, but it was already there. Now it's back to its original position. Well, it was already there. So now that I have these markers in the right position, the very last thing to do for these objects is to just put them somewhere. So let's say I just want it to kind of look like, you know, like some kind of shelf or something, you know? Somewhere, or maybe I had like a bunch of these shelves around, and so, you know, it was like part of the furniture or something, you know, you can't even tell. And, you know, you just come in and you don't think anything of it, and you push a button. Oh, and it just like comes right out of the, you know, the woodwork, literally, and becomes your object. And then when you're done with it, oh, you know what? I got to reset the world for it to work. And let me explain to you why. You're not going to always have to reset it. You just have to reset it after the first time you programmed it, which I just did, okay? That's because when the world is started, that's when we're setting those original positions, okay? And when I reset the world, it gives it a new when it started. So here, it'll work this time. Okay, nothing to it. Now, let's make this whole thing from scratch. Okay, oh, this was an example I started making from scratch, and I really loved it, but I didn't record it well, so I'm going to make the exact same thing from scratch. Watch. Oh my gosh. It's painful, all that work. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the object. Here, the object was a chair, robot, you know. Now let's make another robot. I just like my robots. All right, let's just use some simple shapes. Let's just color them for a little bit of fun. All right, so I'm going to just use 3 shapes, and I'm going to make something. I'm not going to be too creative about it. Let's get some nice metal. I guess that nice shine. You know, makes it look, because I want to make another robot. So let's say this is like the robot's, you know, head, and then this is the robot's torso, and then maybe the robot uses wheels. You know, one big wheel to get around, and this is it. I don't know, just make it look cute. All right, so here is our object that we want to make. Okay, and again, you can make whatever you want. You can make animals, or, you know, more robots or something. Okay, let's put a little marker on the ground just so we kind of know where he's standing all the time. Because when you know, watching this video and you see just a big pink floor, sometimes it's hard to tell when movement is happening and stuff, so. So Now, let's go ahead and make the script. So what are we going to need for the script? Well, we're going to need the button, right? So let's pull out a block just so we know where to put our trigger. You know where we know the trigger is. So I'm going to put this trigger over this block so that way we know where to reach our hand in. Because, again, when we're in, test mode or regular mode, we're in regular mode down here, you can't see the trigger. See, right here's the white cube and the trigger's supposed to be next to it. You can only see it when you're in, same thing with the script. Okay. So let's get all the pieces. A script, a trigger, a button. Okay, and yeah, that'll be it. I'd like to set the button to non-collidable. So that way, when I put my hand through it, I'm going to put the trigger on there. It just goes through a little easier and hits the trigger a little easier. And here, I'll just match the... And so now I know. Okay, and there's the trigger that we're going to do the script on. So, okay, let's open up a script. Starting a brand new script. It already has when world is started, but we're going to start with our variables. No. We are going to start by naming this script. I wasn't going to because it's a tutorial, but I just want to mention, I always name my scripts. Okay, move objects. Very, very cool, flashy name. Beat that, ChatGPT. Move objects. Okay, and the variables. So what's the first variables we need? We need variables for every object in this thing. So there's 3 objects. Okay, there's the top object. There's the middle object. And can you guess what the last one is? That's right, the under object. Just kidding. The bottom object. I just picked some random words for bottom. All right. So there's a variable for those 3. Now we have to do, and remember, each object that we have is going to end up with 4 variables. The object for itself, the marker, the original vector, and the original rotation. And by vector, I mean position. Okay, so now let's make 3 marker objects. So let's just say for top marker, we'll just put TM, just doing little shortcuts. Top marker, middle marker is MM. Okay, bottom marker is BM. All right, come on, Danny. All right, object. So there we go. Top marker, middle marker, bottom marker for the top middle. Now let's do the 3 positions. So the top original position, middle original position, and bottom. And you know what? Again, I'm gonna cheat and just be quick about it. Okay. So top position, and that's a vector. Then middle position, MP, is also a vector. And then obviously bottom position is also a vector. Now I know maybe people expected me to fast forward through this, but not with Teacher Danny. All right. So now the 3 rotations. So top rotation. And it's a rotation, not a vector this time. Middle rotation. Hey, mister. And then bottom rotation. And I'm going to go ahead and, you know what? I'll wait for the Boolean until we get to that part. All right. So first things first, let's set, when the world is started. When the world is started, what are we going to do? We're going to go to our values and we're going to click set to. It's the very top one. And this is where we're going to set all of those original positions and vectors. So first thing, let's start with set the top position. And we're going to set that to the position of the top. And to do that, we go to the 4th column, which is operators, and scroll just a little bit down, and you find under object transform, it's position of object. Because again, we can't say, just go to set this vector to top. See, now it says incorrect typeset, expected vector. Top is not a vector, top is an object. But if we say position of object, then it's just saying just those 3 numbers that represent that object. And which object? It's, well, the top position. We want it to match the position of the top. And it'll set this when the world is started. So I know I could be copying, pasting stuff, but I'm trying to do things in a way that, you know, people see all the steps. Eventually I'll start copying and pasting after these first few steps. Okay, set 2. Now we're going to set the next position. The middle position. And what are we going to set the middle position to? We're going to go back to operators. Still got position of object there. And to the position of what? The middle. Because when that middle piece first starts out, that's going to have a position. And it's going to move to that. All right. And then one more. Now we're going to set the bottom position. And see, when you do everything in order and you do everything with good labels, like it might seem tedious or, you know, just like too much, but it just saves you so much brain power in the long run with all the logic and calculating. And then people can come look at your scripts and they're easier to understand. So that's why I like to take my time and do everything right. Okay, set the bottom position vector to the position of bottom. Now we're going to set the rotations. And for the rotations, let me start using some copying. So the first thing is the top rotation. Drag it in. And now we're going to drag it in. This time when we go to operators, instead of saying position of object, we get rotation. So that way it'll just give us the 3 numbers of the object's rotation. And the top rotation needs... Now I could go over here and get the top object there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it. I'm going to just pull the trigger. I'm grabbing it. Oh, you got to just be pointing at the object. So I'm grabbing it and you see it's like highlighted here. It's like copied. I'm not letting go of the trigger. I drag down here and I'm still not going to let go of the trigger. I'm going to tap right on this stick with my thumb and it's going to copy it into there because that right stick is the duplicate. So watch this. And it went in there. Okay. So now, if I just grab this, and again, I'm grabbing something, I hit to the right, and it copies it. All right, so now I'm going to set the middle rotation to the rotation of the middle. Now, see, if I grab it and I bring it down, I'm supposed to tap right to copy it in there. But if I don't tap right, if I just drag it down there, it's going to move it and empty it where it was. It's going to just move it, not copy it. We don't want that. We want to grab it, point, and copy. So that way we don't lose the original. Okay, and you can see now, because I already have set to rotation of, so it saves me a teeny bit of time. And this is a good practice because eventually you will start doing things that require, all these little shortcuts because it's going to be a lot. Right here, you literally could just do everything from scratch by hand over and over. You don't have to save this as an asset by the time you get used to it because this thing is really, really simple once you learn it. Okay, so the 3 positions and vectors, the 3 vectors and rotations, as soon as the world is started, are set to that. Now we're going to go back to events, and when trigger is entered by player, because we're going to do this by a button. And the button is going to be this trigger here, and we're going to call this white thing the button. Like over there, I took my time and I made like nice buttons here. That's hitting the button. Every time I do this, I touch this white square, I know I'm hitting the button because, see, here's that white square. Let me just lower it a teeny bit. It doesn't need to be smaller, but I don't know. Just something about what fencing. Okay, so that's me touching the button. Okay, but essentially it's player enters trigger. So under the events, when player enters, or when triggers enter by player, we want to move the objects to the positions of the markers. Because we're going to, we're going to set up the markers there, but again, we're going to be putting this robot somewhere. So So that'll be the robot. That's where we're going to set our markers. But eventually, when we finish it, we're going to move like the robot off to the side because we want it to look like something else to transform into this robot. Okay, yes, that's a robot. When trigger is entered by player, what are we going to do? We're going to move those objects. We're going to motion. And then we're not just going to move to instantly. We want to move to over time so that way we can see it travel. I mean, the whole point of that is just like, because it looks cool. You know, you could easily just have it move and just appear. I mean, if you're going to do that, you wouldn't even break it into pieces. You would just move it one whole object and it would just appear there. But we don't want it to appear. We want it to glide over. So the first thing we're going to move is we're going to move the bottom, the top. And we're going to move it to the position of the top marker. Okay, which we haven't even made yet. Oh, you know what? When we made all the objects, that's probably would have been the good time to make the 3 markers. That's okay. We'll make the markers in a second. Okay. So I'll do one more. Oh, and let's also rotate 2. You know, we'll do all the movements. Well, I want it to be clear. I'm going to go ahead and mix them up. So we're moving the top to the position of the top marker that we haven't invented yet. Now we're going to go back to motion again. And this time we're going to rotate over time. Again, rotate 2 over time. And we're going to rotate to the top. We're going to rotate the top to the rotation of, under operators, the top marker. Okay. And now I'm going to copy both of these. Now I'm going to copy both of these. Make another copy. One of the move and another one of the rotate. But instead of top, we're going to move middle. See, once you know what you're doing, you just pop it in. Okay. And rotate the bottom one to the position of bottom marker. And that's it. Okay. So, but we have to plug in, we have to make those markers. Okay. So let's I don't know if we should make the markers first and then do the whole thing. Let's go ahead and make the markers right now. Okay. So these 3 variable markers are going to be like those invisible blocks like we use here. These are invisible blocks that are also non-collidable. So let's get out 3 markers. I'll just make 1. All right. Now, this marker, it's visible, so we're going to make it invisible. We don't want it to reflect anything, and we don't want it to be collidable. We don't want anything to bump into it. Okay? Now, this will be, we have 3 markers because we have 3 objects. Okay, and let's name them. So I'm going to name this one top marker. Now I know I could have just wrote TM, but I want to make sure that you see the difference when I plug all these in, the difference between TM and top marker. I mean, they're going to match up identical, but that way you'll know which came from which. So the objects themselves are named the full names, and the variables are the ones that have the shortcuts. Okay, top marker, middle marker, and then we'll make the... I know you want me to fast forward, but you in school, fool. All right, just kidding. I shouldn't call people fool. What language? Middle marker, bottom marker. All right. So these are the 3 markers. And what are we going to do? We're going to move them because we're going to eventually take this and like put it somewhere and make it look like something else, you know? But then it's going to assemble to here. So that means we need the marker to be right here. And again, how do we do that? We take the marker and we copy the object it's going to be guiding. So we look at the top marker's attributes and then the head's attribute, or the top piece. You know what? Let me just call it top piece, top object. Okay, and let's just do all of them. Middle object. I can't tell you how much I love labeling things. And I think a big reason that I like labeling things so much is because it takes time away from the thinking and brain stuff that comes with the the scripting. Oh man, it's like I don't know, just a little break. All right. What am I doing? I'm naming things. Okay. Bottom object. I can just say OBJ. We shorten that for object all the time. Okay. So this top marker, we want this to be exactly where this top object is. So we're going to copy the top object. Top object says these 3 numbers, so we're going to set it to... So position, negative 1670. Negative 6.7. 1.96 is the top object, so we'll change the marker to this. 1.96 meters up. And then the third one is 14.17. So this one will be 14.17. Okay, so these 3, the marker copies the object. And look, it's right there. Now let's also copy its rotation. So the top object is a rotation of 0, 180, 0. And this is pretty close to 0, 180, 0. 357 is very, very close because 360 would mean it's also 0. 360 and 0 are practically the same. Okay, so it was 0, 180, 0. It says negative 0. Again, that's the same as 360, negative 360. I don't know if that's a thing, negative 360. I don't know if negative 0 is a thing, but whatever. Okay, X, Y, Z. X is 0. Y is 180. And 0 is negative 0. I'm just going to put 0. I don't have it in my heart to write negative 0. And that's it. Those are those 2 positions. So now we can plug them into our trigger. So we have our trigger. We're going to go to the to the script that we named, move objects. And it's going to have spaces for all the 3 objects and the 3 markers. So let's plug in the top piece. The top piece is going to... So now we know that this top piece, it disappeared for a second, but it's still there. This top piece is the top object. So top object is for top, middle. And again, if you had to stop in the middle and then come back to this, like while scripting, I don't know why they keep disappearing. Then you could come back and it'll be so easy. Bottom object, bottom. Simple. Okay. Now, the markers. Let's see. We got this guy as a marker. That's the top marker. So we put TM. And this one is middle marker. And this one is bottom marker. Okay. So now it's programmed. If I push the button, the objects are going to do what? Well, the one object, they're going to move to the positions of those markers. Okay? So what does that mean? What's going to happen? Well, this head's going to stay right where it is because I put the marker right there. So it's already going to stay there. This is programmed to go to the middle marker. Oh, I hit the button. Darn it. It did it. That was the spoiler. Okay. So it did it. I accidentally hit the trigger, so that's why it moved. So you see those, because remember the markers were over here. These other 2, we didn't set those up yet. We only copied the head marker. So the head marker stayed where it was. Now, those are not going to go back. We didn't program it to go back. So now, let's program it to go back. So here, I'm going to reset the world. And to do that, we're going to need to, this is where we set up the Boolean, because when you touch the button, I want it to turn it on, and then you touch the button, and then turn it back off, and it disassembles. So how are we going to do that? We're going to make a Boolean for assembled. We're going to call it assembled. And a Boolean only has two values. It can only be false or true. As to where vectors can only be three different numbers. As to well, objects can only refer to an object. You know, there's another variable. You could do numbers. You know, you could do a number variable, and this one only accepts numbers. So you can't make that letters or whatever. I think I might not even take decimals. But anyway, so Boolean is only true or false. We're going to start it off at false because when the world starts, the robot is not assembled. So we're saying that assembled is false. So we'll go back to events, go to the top, and we'll look at these green ones. So if, we're going to stick it right under the trigger. So when the trigger happens, the first line it's going to read is if. And if what? We're going to say if the Boolean assembled is equal to false. In other words, the object is not assembled. If that's the case, then go on and do what's next, which is assemble it by moving all these positions, moving these objects to the positions of their markers. Now, how do we write if assembled equals false? Well, we go back down to our operators, and it's the very top, it's the very first one. So if, let's drag the Boolean from our variables. And where do we get the false? We get a generic one from values, and it's all the way at the bottom. See, Boolean, that's what it's called. It's a Boolean input. And if assembled is false, see, we can just change it to true, but we don't. We want it to false. Then it'll do whatever is under it, but not just whatever is under it, whatever is nested into it. So this if statement will not affect these. When triggers entered by player, it's still going to do all these. But if we move it under the if, and then the if has that like column to the left of it, if these are nested in the if statement, it's called the if statement. Then if this if statement is true, assembled being false, then it will do this. So if assembled is false, it will do whatever is in here. But if it's not false, it will not do anything in there unless, you know, this passes this check, right? I'm going to stop trying to use true and false too many because there's different ways to use it, and the logic is quite layered. So we're just going to say this. If assembled is false, we're going to do all these things. Let's get everything under there. And then after it moves and rotates those objects to the right place, well, assembled is false. If you touch the button again, it'll just be assembled. So now we're going to set, we use the set to from values like we did at the beginning with the rotations and vectors. Now we're going to set the Boolean assembled to true because I got to set it to true. We're going to set it to true because next time we hit the button, we don't want to do all these things. So if you hit the button when triggers entered by player and assembled is true, that means it's not going to, it's like, is assembled false? No. So it's not going to do any of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if else. Okay? Or else if, I guess. So else if, let me copy this down. You know what? I'm going to do it again. If assembled equals false. Oh, I can copy these down. If assembled equals true. Now, this is what will happen if it equals false. This will happen if it equals true. What do we want it to do? Well, we want it to move. We want these things to move, and I'm going to copy some of these. Whoop, did I copy it or move it? Where's the rotate top? What did I do with top? Oh, no. Okay. Okay, so move the top and then rotate the top. All right. So now we're going to move those back to their original positions, which we can just grab from right here. So move the top to we're not going to say position of because we already have, because we want three numbers. Well, hey, we got three numbers right there. Move top to the top position or the original top position. Rotate it to the top rotation. Okay, let's copy these again. Now we're going to move and rotate the middle. Oh, whoops, that's middle marker. Sorry. We're going to rotate middle. We're going to rotate it to the middle position and middle rotation. And I guess at this point I could like fast forward a little. I'm sure you're getting it, but you know what? That's like more editing work. All right. So now we're going to move the bottom to the bottom position and the bottom rotation. All right, if assembled is true. And then again, we want to set assembled to false. I'm going to copy this down here. Because next time we touch it, because now, you know, we're setting assembled basically to false because it's no longer going to be assembled. It's all moving back to its original positions. Okay, and then it's going to be false the next time you push it. And that's it. That's the whole script. As you see, it's very simple. It's like the logic. It's the understanding where things are going to go and how to arrange things that are tough. And again, I'd be willing to teach people this one-on-one just out of like the goodness of my amazing heart. Haven't been charging to teach, only to build. That just leaves one final thing to do, and that is to move these last two markers. Because now, you know, it's going to, when it moves, it'll move to these. Once I reset the world. And then eventually back to its original position. So let's set those last two markers and then turn that object into some kind of like structure so that way you can't tell what it is when someone first enters your world. So we have these two. Remember how we do it? This is the middle marker. So this middle marker has to go in the position that this middle object would end up moving to this position and being where it needs to be. So we copy the middle object's attributes in position and rotation. So position, you know, and just hurry up and do this because I think we get this now. Okay, position 0.7, 14.17, 00225. That's a pretty good rotation if I've ever heard one. Fellas know what I'm talking about, right? No, just kidding. I have zero inside jokes. All right. So now that middle marker is moved into there. And it's in the position and rotation it needs to be to match that. Now finally we'll do the bottom object and bottom marker. Okay, so I could just do it again where I have the bottom object and I see its position and rotation, and then I copy it into the bottom markers, position and rotation, so that way it goes there. But I am going to do a simple little shortcut. I'm going to grab it by its center. I'm going to make sure that its orientation is the same as the object it's going to be using. Let's see. Z plus that way, y x minus that way. Let's see where Z plus, x minus. All right, and that's a y minus on top. Yep. So it's in the right rotation. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to have it on magnet mode. I'm going to set it to magnet. Oh, you know what? It's a little tough because I keep accidentally selecting this ramp. Because see, even though it's that shape, the frame around it is still a rectangle. All right. So now now when I go in here, it'll match this instead. All right. Okay, and I just moved it to the center, facing the right thing. Now, essentially, I've copied this object's position and rotation. So watch. Now, the bottom object, instead of having to copy it and type it all in, look, it's all the same. Bottom marker. Rotation. I know these say negative, but -0 is the same as 0 in regards to this situation. Okay, and they're both 180. So that's it. So now I'm going to move these objects. And I recommend you don't do it that way. I recommend you just copy the numbers. But let's turn this into some kind of structure, you know? Maybe I'll unlock it so that way I can select it again. And I always try to make sure that however I set it up, it has a different rotation So that, so that way you really get to see some movement. So you might come into a place and just think this is whatever you might think it is. And when you push the button, and you would put on all the sound effects and everything, but there you go. We've just invented it. Now, when I hit the button, is it going to go back to there? Well, it's going to be a little tricky because this is where it originally was when the world started. So I need to reset the world. And now the world has started again. And now these objects have started in this position. So then in the script, we reset the world. So essentially it does all the stuff in when world has started. It set all these original positions and rotations. So now it knows where to go. So now it'll go, and I didn't plug in a sound effect, so I'll just give you one. And now it's going to go back to its original position. You know what? I should have been a professional sound effect maker. Oh, man. Really missed my calling. So again, that's it. We got the script. It works pretty solid. There's ways to do it. Mix up the numbers, like wouldn't it be cool if, let's see, this is what I did with the last one. I had the rotations take longer. So that way it moves to its position in just 1 second, but for another second, once it hits that position, it has to get into its rotation. So here we go. Man, those video game skills of mine, just like sound effect skills. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Definitely not my video game skills. I will never get out of silver in Overwatch. All right. And see, because we staggered the amount of the time that it rotates into that position, see, it hits the position in 1 second and then finishes its rotation just to, give it a little bit more animation. All right, if anybody has any questions about this, I want you to know I take 100% accountability when I teach. Like, if I didn't teach you, then I didn't meet you where you are. I didn't break down the steps in the right way. I can teach this to anybody that shows up. And I'm not saying like I can go knock somebody over the head and make them know this. Just show up. You don't have to be good at scripting. I'm going to be able to teach you this. All right, Teacher Danny, leave comments and stuff. Ask me questions about this, and I will put in the answers. Take care. Hold on, I got a little thing here. Wasn't that cute?